Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for your Chairman of Council, Councillor Darshan Sangha.
Good evening, everybody. So we'll start off with item number 1. Over to you, Mr. Woodall, for the webcasting introduction, please. Thank you.
The Chairman would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. If you are seated in the lower public seating area, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. And could I also remind members to switch their microphones off when they've finished speaking? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodall. Good evening, everybody. My name's Darshan Sangha, and I shall be chairing the meeting tonight. Today is 20th of February 2024. To help me with the meeting so it goes smoothly, on my right is my Vice Chairman, Councillor Les Burrows. If you wish to speak tonight, if you could get his attention so you can write down your name and we can come to you. Apologies for absence, please. Mr. Woodall. Thank you.
Chairman, we have apologies from Councillors Bassett, Brady, Bob Jennings, Judy Jennings, Kesker, Pugsley, Baldwin, Chris Pond, Caroline Pond, McIver, Lisa Morgan, Hadley and Banout.
Thank you, Mr. Woodall. Members? Councillor Balcom. Sorry?
Councillor
Shruti Patel. Any other members wishing to? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. Item number 3 is declarations of interest. Members, over to you. Any members? Councillor Murray.
A non-prejudicial interest. I just declare that I'm a trustee of the CA.
Thank you. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, perhaps I should declare that I'm a member of the CAB, yeah, for a CAB.
Thank you. Any other member? Okay. Thank you. Item number 4 is minutes to approve. It's on the supplementary agenda, pages 153 to 166, a meeting held on the 19th of December. Members, can I have your consent to sign those? Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. At the last council meeting, I expressed concern that the minutes of what members had asked, their questions and the answers were not very fully reported. And I am glad to see in these minutes it is a little more full, that it does say what we raised issues on. But I still think that members, backbench members, do deserve to have their full question and the full answer in the minutes reported there. Minutes are important documents, and the members of the public had the full question and the full answer given, and I think we should be treated in the same way. So I just make one more request that this will be looked at again, and perhaps we can just move that one step further to having it fully reported. Thank you, Ma'am.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. Did one of our officers want to report, take that into Mr. Small?
I think we'll talk to the relevant portfolio holder, Chair.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk to the relevant portfolio holder and make sure that take that into consideration. Councillor Brooks.
Chair and members, I'd like to support Councillor Whitehouse in this, because not everyone finds their way to YouTube to look at the webcasts, etc. And it is a record where you can quickly see what answers have been given. And I know democratic services are under pressure, but to have a written record, I feel, is important for future years. Thank you.
Thank you. Noted. Okay. Any other? Otherwise, can I sign those minutes off, members? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, that's number 5 is my part. So bear with me, members, there's my announcements at item number 5. I've just got to find my sheet that was left here. Please bear with me while I try and find my announcement. It's written out. Okay, members, before I begin, I'm sure you will join me in sending His Majesty King Charles III our most heartfelt best wishes for a speedy recovery from his cancer diagnosis. Talking about cancer is not always easy. I hope that his openness will encourage others to talk more honestly about the disease and seek help should they need it. Since we last met, I've had the honour to host our civic carol service in my ward in Chigwell Village, the Church of St Mary's Church. Back in October, Network Homes, one of Epping Forest District Council's strategic housing partners, merged with Sovereign Housing Association to become Sovereign Network Homes. They are delivering much needed affordable housing for the district, and I was delighted to attend the official opening of the 22 housing units in Borders Lane in Loughton at the end of last month. I was particularly taken by one of the new residents who said, when you're in temporary accommodation, you just feel like you have no life. So it's an amazing feeling. I've got a proper home now, and I'm just so happy. It's a new chapter and a new beginning. Very emotional words, as we all know how important it is to have a safe and a secure roof over our heads, a place we can call home. In January, I had the honour of attending the Holocaust Memorial Day event in Loughton, hosted by the Epping Forest Educational Trust. I also had a very interesting meeting with Rabbi Yosin Pozan, head of Holocaust Memorial Day on the 27th of January. Each year, Holocaust Memorial Day has a theme. This year was the fragility of freedom. With local and national elections coming in 2024, it seems more appropriate than ever to remember that fragility of freedom we all enjoy in the UK today. That freedom comes from a tolerant and open society where we all abide by common laws, respect the views of others, and enjoy equal rights. I've been a chairman now for 9 months now, and it's been an absolute pleasure to attend such a wide variety of events and meet the incredible people of our lovely district. Next month, we'll be hosting our Civic Awards at the Delta by Marriott Hotel in Waltham Abbey. It is a chance to celebrate the district's unsung heroes and their successes, contributions, and dedication to our community. Thank you to everyone who took the time to make a nomination. I'd also like to thank those on the judging panel. There were so many worthy nominees, and it was hard to pick a winner. You'll have to wait until the 15th of March to find out who our winners are. May I take this opportunity to remind those members who have not replied to your invitation to Pat Seeger to do so tonight. Thank you. Item number 6 is public questions. If we've got any, Mr. Woodall.
No, Chairman, we have no public questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7 is questions by members without members under notice. Mr. Woodall.
There are no questions from members under notice tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Item number 8 is report from the leader and the members of the Cabinet, and that's on pages 7 to 35. So if I could invite Councillor Chris Whitbread to take us through, please. Thank you.
And thank you, Chairman. Chairman, 9 months has gone by very quickly for you. And I know how busy you've been. Members, I've been very lucky over a number of years to have a brilliant cabinet of different types of individuals around me over that period of time. And I wanted to thank this evening the work of Councillor Sam Kane, who has decided to step down from the cabinet. But Sam has done a brilliant job for us from day one. And I really appreciate everything that he's done and achieved for us. And I know he's going to continue working alongside Cabinet colleagues as they get used to some of the parts of his role that he's fulfilled over the years, which, having redistributed it across the Cabinet, thank you to my colleagues for taking on additional pieces of work, is very diverse. There's a lot in there, and it shows how busy Sam has been over a period of time working with the team and being an integral part of the team, and someone who's been a really good advisor to myself over time as well. So thank you, Sam, and look forward to continued working. It's been a busy month or so since we last met. On Thursday last week, we attended a housing summit in Colchester, which had all the North Essex councils coming together to discuss probably one of the biggest strategic problems all councils face across the country, let alone the county. And it was first of its kind, very well done, some good presenters. I went with my colleague, the housing portfolio holder, and of course officers of this council, and it was really productive, particularly the morning piece that I was able to attend, where we had some great presentations on the challenges before us. And you do sit back when you attend these events and think that we are a lucky council in so many ways, because we have a local plan in place. We know where developments will go in the future, and we know where those homes that our children, our grandchildren and our families will require in the future. So it's really important, and I feel very fortunate that we have a council that had the courage to put in place a local plan. As Councillor Phillip has said many times, we might not love every part of the local plan, but at least we've got one, which is so integral to us to get proper joined up development. And you do start to realise how lucky we are. And we're also very lucky that we've had a good housing team over the years who have put in place a proper allocations policy that mean Epping Forest people get popped first, and that we have got the 7-year allocation policy in there that means that local people get a chance. And we have a sensibly sized housing waiting list. But like everyone, we have the challenges of people becoming homeless, and that in these particularly what have been challenged times has been more and more often, and it's a problem that we need to address. We are fortunate that we have the homeless centre at Norway House, where the staff are brilliant and they do a wonderful job. We've also got Hemnall House in Epping as well, but I believe in the future we will need additionality to that, and it's something that I know my colleague Holly Whitbread is looking at very, very carefully at the present time. So we have challenges there. You may have also heard that obviously there's things going on at a national level at the moment, and devolution has been put on pause as we speak at the moment. I think the government has other things on its mind, but devolution has been put on pause. That's not necessarily a bad thing for us. We are making great progress as North Essex councils and our shared working aspirations and the many things that we can do together. So there is a real positive agenda building up with North Essex councils. Indeed, I have another meeting with my colleagues next week, and it's good that we are playing a leading role in that, and we are ahead of the curve here in Epping Forest, because it's a real important part of our future, and as an aspiring council it's important that we are ahead of the curve. So I'm really pleased about that, and I'm really thankful again because we've got forward-thinking officers who really do get it. And it was great for me the other day. I was talking to the leader of Colchester, and to hear praise heaped to my officers, our officers, who are over there helping Colchester and working with Colchester as well. That's great news for Epping Forest. We've never been as open and in touch with other councils as we are today, and building on those strong bonds that came through that dreadful pandemic that we went through, but now means that we are a council that is working closely in partnership with everybody. There is more to do, and I had a letter this week from the chairman of the West Essex and Hertfordshire Health Board. We need to build our closer working relationships with them, and I think that's really important for the future. It's another partnership that I'm keen to see built upon. I know, again, our officers are doing a first-class job on that, but there is opportunity for us there as well. And closer to home, we had a brilliant visit to Ninefields in Waltham Abbey, where we walked around with the community wellbeing team. What a brilliant job they do. And some of the work that's happened across partnerships with the police, our own police as well, those ones that you'll hear mentioned again and again tonight in the budget, Our own police, our community wellbeing team, and the efforts being made to improve life on Ninefields is exceptional. And I know that Maria and Shane in particular will welcome that and the work that's been done down there by those teams. And I know the residents certainly do. In fact, those we were talking to as we went round, and you stand there in the middle of Ninefields with our great sports centre that was provided by Epping Forest District Council, and you see the improvements that have been made. We have much to be proud of Epping Forest achievements. So they're the good news stories. And of course, as you drive down Baker's Lane every day now in Epping, you start to see our sports centre starting to progress. These are good news stories for Epping Forest. And I know, as Councillor Phillip gives the budget this evening, a budget that has been built in tough times, he will look forward to a promising tomorrow. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitbread. Any other portfolio holder wishing to? Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. In my report, I say that the 2021 accounts have not yet been signed off, but I'm really pleased to let the Council know that at the meeting of Audit and Governance that we had last week, the 20 to 21 accounts were signed off and approved by the Audit Committee. Members will remember that last year we changed the Constitution to allow the Audit Committee to sign those off. I'd just like at this stage to thank the Audit Committee, the members here under the chairmanship of Councillor Bolton, for the work that they do on that. It does sound very strange for us to be celebrating getting accounts signed off for 2021, but we are still significantly ahead of a large number of other councils in this county and across the country. It's worth noting that one of our very near neighbours hasn't got their last 5 years' worth of accounts signed off yet. So we're doing significantly better there. And it was particularly pleasing after the meeting that Mr Small and I had with Deloitte, our auditors, to see the commitment in Audit and Governance that the 21-22 accounts would also be final before the end of this financial year. And I welcome that commitment from Deloitte. It's something that will move us significantly further forward. It's worth just noting on that at the end of January, there were over 150 across the country councils that didn't have those accounts in final. And it's worth noting from the National Audit Office, actually, that there were 632 councils countrywide that hadn't got their 21-22 accounts published according to schedule. So it's not great, it's not our fault, and it's worth pointing out, as I'm sure Mr Small or Mr Hartgrove would be happy to take you through the details. The accounts approved last week show no significant changes in the key figures at all from what we published the September after 2021 closed. We were right. The auditors took a heck of a long time to get that done. Having given you good news, this is me now telling you to chivvy up. You will all have received multiple emails about responding to Ernst & Young. So we have had Deloitte as our auditors. We are going to have Ernst & Young as our auditors. For each of the councillors, they require a declaration in terms of their interaction with Ernst & Young. It's really easy. It's 5 questions in a Word document. If you don't fancy doing it in the Word document, put out the question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can answer it, trust me, you can answer it in about 3 minutes. Maybe 4 if you're really not technologically sound. But it's that easy. 5 questions. The majority, for me anyway, it was no, none, not applicable, no, none. That's not difficult. I don't want us to be hitting the audit with Ernst & Young and then pointing at our councillor saying they haven't returned their pieces of paper to us, so we can't start the audit. So, councillors, please, over the next week or so, if you haven't done it already, please get that back in. Thank you.
Sorry. If there's no further questions, then we can move on to item number 9, questions by members without notice. Okay. Just keep your hands up so we can take your name. Okay, well, Councillor Mead, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Chairman. In my ward, I receive quite a number of complaints about loose dogs on the public areas, some of the public areas. The new public protection order, which came in for dogs, which came into force on the 8th of January 2024. I'm quite pleased about it, but I'm not sure it goes far enough. But what I want to ask about it is, I wondered where you will be advertising that the new order now exists and ensure dog owners are aware of its commencement, and how often will you be revisiting the current order and monitoring whether it's being adhered to? Thank you.
So is that Councillor Williamson? I think that's for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. I believe there is a process in there for reviewing. I take on board what you said about letting people know. We have, I think, let most people know in lots of different ways. Maybe we need some signs out there on the open areas. I'll look into it and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor John Whitehouse?
Thank you. It's a question for Councillor Williamson, if I may. I've become aware of the North Essex Parking Partnership's proposals to charge for parking in Heartland Road and Kendall Avenue in my ward, and I'm not aware of anyone who's asked for this locally. I've certainly not been consulted as a local member, and nor I think of my ward colleagues. So can I ask him why NET's proposing this, whether Epping Forest District Council supported or opposed proposals at the meeting it was discussed, and what he plans to do about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Williamson, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I'm quite new to NEPP. I've attended one meeting. It was raised under that, and I'm sure there will be a consultation, but it is ongoing. It is the thought process is that it's revenue that NEPP desperately need, and it's a good working example of getting money for people parking where they're parking for free at the moment. So it is ongoing.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Green?
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry to wake you up, Jim. My question is to Councillor Phillips. Within his report, he mentions a meet the buyer. I wonder if he could share with the Council some more information about what that actually means. Thank you.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Green. This is an event that we're setting up. It will be running in the council offices, which we can do without incurring any costs. We're bringing together construction firms, developers, our own planning department will be there to offer advice and guidance. It's a case of noting from an economic development point of view that one of our largest industries within this district is the construction industry. What we're trying to facilitate is the ability for those firms based within our district to actually set up those connections and be able to send business one way and another way within that. So it actually should develop a significant benefit to those companies. We will be doing further events. We're now part of the North Essex Economic Board, and they have an event going on. Unfortunately, that will be in Colchester, which is rather further for our small businesses to go, and that's happening later on in the year. But the key here is actually trying to do something to help our businesses that are struggling at these times and bringing them together in a single place where all the information happens at the same time should be a real benefit for them.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to Leader of Council in his role as Chancellor of Essex. Well, that's the title. We have in front of us tonight that the average or or the Bandy Essex Council tax is going up to a whopping £1,500, which is an increase of £72.36p. Can he please give an assurance to the residents across Epping Forest that we are going to see a stepped and marked improvement in the quality of our roads and our pavements? I've lived in this area for 65 years, and I would say the quality of our roads and the quality of our pavements, which have to be remembered for people who walk, are the worst they have ever been. So our council tax is going up for highways, but the quality of our roads and our pavements, and you only have to ask anyone, it's a universal opinion, is going down. So what assurance can he give us tonight that we are going to see a marked improvement in those two important aspects of life in Epping Forest?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Chris Whitbread, AK Chancellor of Essex.
Thank you, Chairman. And yes, we did have a very long budget debate last week. And I'm sure Councillor Phillip will beat my just over half an hour this evening when he presents our budget here in Epping Forest, which this council is meeting to discuss. But I'm really pleased, not with the fact that we had to increase council tax at Essex County Council, but I'm pleased at the contents of that budget, protecting the most vulnerable within our community, the amount of funding that we've had to find for children's services, which is highly important to us, send spaces, homeschool transport for those children that really need that special transport needs, adult social care, and all those things that we do as a county council, which I think sometimes gets brushed under the carpet and people forget until they need it. And I'm telling you now, we've got so much to be proud of as a county council. Outstanding in children's services, delivering over 5,000 school places over the next 4 years. We do so much as a county council and achieve so much for Essex, and I think it's really important. And also, as a county council, we are heralded in government as well. If you look who they turn to when there's councils in issues, you'll often find Essex there helping out and trying to sort people's problems out for them. So we have so much to be proud of. But I'm really pleased with last week's budget because I was able to find an extra 12 million to put into highways again this year. So that's really, in these hard times financially for anyone who's in the public sector, we was able to find a further 12 million. And we did the same last year. And actually, the facts speak for themselves. Last year, we doubled the number of potholes filled in Essex. It went from 6,000 up to 12,000 potholes filled in the county, which I think is brilliant. And of course, this year, we'll be putting additional money into accelerating some of the projects that are in our local highways panels through the chairman's panel there. And of course, we'll be putting new teams out there as well to work on our highways. So things will get better, Councillor Murray. Getting the investment for it is never easy. If we're honest with everybody in this chamber, I would say the challenge of highways and pavements goes right back to the Second World War, and there has always been a degree of underinvestment in highways. That really needs national pressure to change it, and we know governments always have other spending pressures, health, education, defence, all those things that are important to our country. So let's just be honest with ourselves as well. But last week, Essex put together a great budget for Essex, and we were able to deliver that additional £12 million into highways. So thank you very much, Councillor Murray, for the question.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitbread. Councillor Leslie Payne.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to bring to the Council's attention something that has been on my mind for quite a few weeks. We have been trying to put together a deed of variation and get it through the planning system, and it's taking an inordinate amount of time to be reviewed. I know it's got to be reviewed by the legal system and then reviewed by the planners, but we've also had issues with trying to get a planning permission through, which actually took 6 months for something that was very simple. And I was just wondering if there was any comment on this. I know that planners are sort of being cut, but maybe not. Maybe they shouldn't be so much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Payne. If you could let me know the details of the actual application, I'll certainly look into it for you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Yarrell.
Thank you, Chairman. My question's for the Cabinet Member for Communities. I wonder if you're able to provide me with an update on the Safer Streets project for the Ninefields estate.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Yarrow. Councillor Holly-Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Yarrow for that question. I'll take this question in Councillor Patel's absence, as a lot of it falls within my portfolio. And last week, actually, we had Roger Hurst on the Ninefields estate, as the leader mentioned earlier, to have a look at the progress of the Safer Streets scheme. For newer members, last year we received about 330,000 worth of funding from the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, which was used to really make Ninefields feel a safer space. There were real issues, particularly around ASB and women's safety. So a lot of the work has been around installing a brand new CCTV network across the estate, lots of new lighting, actually new trees lining the path and making it more open. And those who live locally might have seen the fantastic new playground as well, which members had a good go on and were very impressed with the facilities. It was certainly one to be envied, but it was really good to actually walk around with Roger Hurst, and what we discussed in particular was the work of Crime Stoppers and the project there to put posters up to encourage people to report crime. And Crime Stoppers, that report comes in anonymously as well, so often people can feel more comfortable. But there's a lot of money that's gone in there, a lot still to do. We've also should have mentioned the tidying up of the space, particularly with bin stores as well. So a lot still to do, but real progress seen on the ground. So great news for Waltham Abbey and Ninefields. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holly-Whitbread. Councillor Tim Matthews, you have a question.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for the portfolio holder for contracts and service delivery. I note the diabolical situation in Ucklesford district at the moment, where residents have been left up to 5 weeks without their waste collection, and it's my understanding that's due to the council's failure to arrange the correct O licence. Could the portfolio holder please give assurance to this council that we have got everything on track and can ensure a smooth transition to managing Epping Forest waste? Thank you.
Very good question. Thank you. Councillor Balcom.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Matthews. Sorry for the voice, but a cricket ball accident a few weeks ago has left me slightly difficult to speak. First of all, yes, Uttlesford has got 6 weeks of missed collection. I'm glad to say we've had 6 weeks of collections on time, so that's a new record in this council. Going on to the O licence problem, the person who was responsible for the O licence left the council. They had no measure in place. We will have at least 3 people holding an O licence. So any problems, one leaves or whatever, we have 2 others who will step in. So we will never be in that situation.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Any of the members wishing to? Councillor Jodie Lucas.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for the housing portfolio holder. And first, I'd just like to make a comment on the report, one part of the report on the damp and mould policy, which I am really pleased to see has gone through the scrutiny committee and is going to be, we're going to now be working with Qualis to implement this policy. I think it's a very important part of what we're doing at the moment, and I think our residents will be gratefully receiving that. My question is regard to the new house building programme, in particular Willard Street in Waltham Abbey. If I could please have a progress update on that. Thank you.
Councillor Holly-Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Lucas, for that question. And thank you for the work of your committee on the mould and damp policy. It is an extremely important piece of work that we do with 6,500 homes in our council housing stock. It's absolutely vital, particularly for the health and safety of our tenants. And actually the social housing regulator, which looks at these key areas, also including things like electricity and safety in the home, has specified that this is an area that we have to prioritise. So thank you for your work there and attention to that important policy. In relation to the Council House Building Programme, there's 2 exciting openings happening next month. actually one in Woolard Street, which I believe Councillor Kane and Councillor Parsons, as well as the chairman, will be in attendance at, and that's for a new 8-unit development with 7 one-bed properties and 1 2-bed property, and that will be providing homes for people on our council housing list. A week later, we also have an opening in Buckhurst Hill East, which is 7 units, 6 one-bed and 1 2-bed. So it's great to see these projects finally complete. I have to say they have come with some delays and challenges around materials and the contractors, so perhaps slightly later than we would have liked, but it's great to see these projects near completion and the keys ready to hand over to residents.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm not quite sure who this question's for. It's to do with sinking funds on leasehold and commercial units. The Broadway regeneration, we're asking some of the leaseholders to step up with some significant sums. A lot of them are current tenants, and obviously historical tenants have benefited from these units and left. What is going on with regards to sinking funds, and could it be looked at that we possibly help out some of these leaseholders?
Thank you, Councillor. Is that Councillor Phillip? Is that you, money man?
Thank you, Councillor, and it's certainly something that we will look at. We haven't yet fully priced out what we're going to be doing to the Broadway. It is something that we also treat as our commercial approach. We take sensible approaches for all the changes that we make in our property portfolio, and where it makes sense, we will look at sinking funds. Not there yet, but we will get there. As you probably know, our progress since probably the past 3 years, we significantly improved our approach to handling our commercial property. It's delivering a much better return for us and for our residents, and it's a case of moving that forward. Much like I'll be coming to the budget, we've improved the process for that over the past few years as well.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to item number 10, which is motions. Mr. Woodall.
We've received no motions for consideration tonight, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Woodall. Item number 11 is report of the Cabinet, the final draft budget proposals for 2024-25, pages 36 to 142. I'm sure every member here has read through every one of those pages. So I'm going to pass this on to Councillor Phillip to take us through the report, and just to remind members that this will be a recorded vote at the end. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. And sitting down here at the beginning of the evening with Councillor Whitbread showing me his significantly short speech that he was able to give to the County Council on the budget, let me reassure you, I will not be speaking for half an hour. 45 minutes, maybe. So the budget. This budget is really good. It preserves our record for many, many years of delivering service and not cutting our services. This budget preserves that as we go forward. It's not through spending more and more and more, but it's operating as a council more and more efficiently. For the past few years, we have had the pleasure of reducing the burden on our residents as far as possible and being the lowest council tax authority in Essex. We preserve that with this budget today. Not only do we do that, but as I said, we do it without cutting any services. Not only do we not cut services, we continue to provide a significant number of non-statutory services that give added value to our residents. We have within the budget continued funding for the police officers that are based within the council offices, that go out into the district and do significant work keeping our streets safer. They have recently done a really good piece of work on intercepting a cut shop out in the countryside, which not only stops people doing those things, but it also stops the vehicles being stolen to fund that and to go into that. We're maintaining the Highways Rangers who can go around our district and do go around our district, doing small but very significant improvements to the places where people live. It's something that's available across the district and is used across the district, and as such is something that we want to preserve. But it's not a duty that we had a few years ago, but we can still fund that. On the capital side of things, we're also putting in the funding for the new sports centre in Epping. That is fully funded. Let me be really clear, there is no danger while we're in administration of that sports centre not being built. People want it, people like the idea of having a modern sports centre in this part of the district, seeing no reason why only those people in Waltham Abbey, Loughton or Ongar should have swimming pools. That needs to be in Epping as well. And also importantly, and we've heard already from Councillor Balcombe, how the changes that we're putting in place for our waste contract is already putting pressure on BIFA to up their game. We're bringing the waste contract back to our control so that we have proper control over the waste contract. That does cost money. It has to be said, it probably still costs less money than BIFA or a replacement for BIFA would be asking for when they renewed the contract. But we've got the funding for that. Standing here in February, looking back at the budget process, I can't believe quite how long it's gone on. We seem to have been working at it almost since I stood up here last February and presented the last budget. Our first outing was in October Cabinet, where we brought an updated medium-term financial plan. At that point, we identified, or before that point, we identified a significant shortfall in the budget. It's not a one-off shortfall, it's a systemic shortfall. And while we can do things here and now about it, it's something that we need to work on. It's worth saying this is not a problem caused by bad management. We have a significant number of pressures that are putting our costs up. And the biggest one, as I've said before in this chamber, is our staff costs. If we look over the past 3 years, the staff pay rises themselves have cost over 4 million in an increase. That is a big amount to deal with. That is almost half as much as we gather through council tax. Worth saying as well, because I'm sure that we will hear somewhere that that's just because we pay our top level people significantly. It's across the board, and the impact is probably greatest on those at the bottom end of our pay scale, with the way that the pay rises have been implemented over the past years. So that's especially supporting our lowest paid officers. And it's a really important thing that we do when we have people working in here, working for the council, working for our residents, is to make sure that they are paid properly. We did get, very usefully, a receipt for the sale of a part of North Weald Airfield. Let me just be very clear on that. That is a piece of land that is allocated within the local plan for employment land. It's not the whole of it. There is still more that will be developed, and we're looking to see how we do that most efficiently, best for our district and best for our residents. It's also worth saying it does not stop flying from North Weald. It's one of the things that allows us to keep the flying at North Weald, which we know the North Weald residents want. But some people might think that that 88 million that we receive for that can be used just to spend on our general fund revenue. It's not allowed. That is a capital receipt. We have to use the capital receipt only for capital things. We cannot use that to fund our ongoing continuing service budget. What it does do is allow me to reschedule some of the difficult decisions we were going to have to make in the next year and not implement them straight away. You will still see the effects of them in the medium-term financial strategy going down the years, because the medium-term financial strategy covers the next 5 years. But we do have in place the Fit for the Future programme, which we need to fund to make sure that in future years, the burden of cost goes down. We're investing, as you can see in the budget, a significant amount of money in that transformation, and I expect as a result of that, our costs will also go down significantly. It's worth saying that over the past 6 months or so, I have come to Cabinet, to overview and scrutiny, etc., with various versions of the budget, actively looking for input from across the chamber. And even since our last meeting of Cabinet, I have been talking to a number of my colleagues who've approached me about this and looked to make changes to the budget. I don't know whether it says that we're dedicated or sad, but the leader and I were putting the final touches to the budget at about 10 o'clock on Sunday night, so that we were in a position to bring forward a formed budget to this council. And I have been able to find the ability to fully fund the Citizens Advice Bureau and the Voluntary Action Epping Forest for 1 more year, guaranteeing that funding for the next year. That will make changes to the table on page 58, increasing the CAB to 152,400 and the VAF to 30,000. I'm funding that by taking the money out of the transformation reserve at this stage, hoping that we will make significant progress on the transformation, which will allow us in the future to add in to that transformation reserve. It's worth noting that will make the money within the transformation reserve reduce to still just over 2.1 million. I believe that will still allow us to make significant progress in the coming year on that transformation. And as we go forward, that will allow us to have less pressure on our general fund. It's also worth noting that, unlike the doom and gloom that I have had to spend a number of times, with this budget, we will be above the £4 million in reserves that are required by our Section 151 officer to be sound. The budget will actually add over £2 million to our reserves. So what have we got here? We've got a budget that preserves all our services. There's a budget that allows us to keep doing things for our residents. There's a budget that allows us to carry on with things like the sports centre. It's a budget that puts in place money to allow us to change this council so that we are fit for the future. And it includes an increase for council tax, less, only marginally, but less than the maximum that we're allowed to do, which works out on a Band D property to just over 9 pence a week. Now, it's been a long time since I went down to shop and bought penny chews, and I bet penny chews aren't pennies anymore. But 9 pence for everything we offer with the additionality, I believe, is a really good budget. Just some of the highlights I think I want to mention. If we look at the employees within the general fund, the cost on that is edging up towards £22 million. For our supplies and services, which includes bringing waste back under our control, is just over £10 million. We bring in money from the things we do, from fees and charges. That's going to bring in about £18 million. We can see in there that Qualis is still making a significant impact on our budget, helping us to balance our books significantly. That's a contribution of around about £3.5 million. We plan, and it's obviously the next report, but we plan to bring in about £9.3 million through council tax, with that small 2.99% rise. And we expect to get 5.4 million or thereabouts from the business rates. All our savings within this report, apart from ones I've already identified, are within the Cabinet reports. And included in the final budget, it does have the funding of the members' allowances that we deferred to look at how the budget was setting out. So that's covered into the next financial year. Now, the majority of what I said and what we tend to get focused on is the general fund budget, the revenue budget. But there are three other budgets within this report that we should also consider. We have the HRA revenue budget. It is also important. The HRA revenue budget, controlled by the business plan which comes through our community's scrutiny. We do still have a very large council house stock, which Councillor Whitbread has already mentioned. There's no changes in that from the budget that I brought forward to Cabinet earlier on this month. Appendix B in the report covers the capital expenditure for both the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. We see changes which were the same as the changes at Cabinet over the next 5 years of almost £10 million on the General Fund capital, bringing it to a total over the next 5 years of £60 million. That's £60 million of capital that we're investing in making things better for our residents. And the HRA, well, that's £140 million over the next 5 years. So from capital expenditure, we're looking to spend on people in our district around about £200 million over and above the general revenue budgets for both General Fund and HRA. That is a lot of money, but we can do it because we're a well-run council. And that HRA investment of £140 million, that will be scrutinised through the community's scrutiny panel. We need to note that within this report, the increases to the fees and charges are called out. There are no changes to that from what's been in the last couple of reports. The housing rent goes up at the rate specified from the government. Within the report, there is also the medium-term financial plan, which we are endorsing as part of this activity. We also have within there the Section 151 Officer's Report on the soundness of the budget and the adequacy of the £4 million in reserves. And finally, again, just giving a nod to the Audit and Governance Committee, who've already gone through both our Treasury Management Strategy and our Capital Strategy. Those reports are also within this overarching report for us to adopt, as that helps to guide us in the way we go forward. Members, I think what we've got here is a really excellent budget. I think we've done a marvellous job to get here. I do want to thank Mr. Small and Mr. Hartgrove, but also all the rest of the finance team who've worked really hard to get us here. The number of times that I've received things, particularly from Mr. Hartgrove, either late at night or at the end of a weekend because he's been working on it, shows dedication. I'd like to thank my Cabinet colleagues who looked in great detail at their various areas to see where savings could be made. Remember, it's savings and it's also generating additional revenue. I do also want to thank Audit and Governance for the work they've done on the strategies, but also, and perhaps particularly, to overview and scrutiny, who in general have worked with me on this budget so that we can get to a point where we have a good budget. We have seen where their intents have lain, and we've done our best to make sure that we have it. Chairman, I commend this budget to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. Councillor Chris Whitbread, do you want to second that or reserve? Councillor Whitbread.
Chairman, I'm happy to second and reserve my right to speak last.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, Councillor Murray, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A number of comments, please. Without a doubt, the first thing I want to say is thank you very much for the decision, late decision, but welcome decision you've made as regards VAFE and CA. That's a point that's obviously been made from within your own group, but it was also made at Cabinet and ONS by other members from around the Chamber. I'm glad that you've listened. I'm glad that you've been able to find that extra money. It was a relatively small amount. I understand that there are question marks for the future, but at this stage, a really big thank you, because it will give those two significant groups at least an opportunity to plan a little and so on. So that's a genuine thanks. I also would like to thank the officers for their hard work on this. But above all, Councillor Phillips, I want to thank you. Because I have to say, for the first time in a long time, and I haven't spoken to my other colleagues here, I don't know how they feel, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt as if opinions other than those from within your own group have actually been valued and listened to, and I felt that it's been worthwhile making a contribution and that we haven't just been treated as an irritant. And I think that's a really important change of philosophy we've seen this year. I've certainly seen a marked difference. I've attended as many of the ONS and the scrutiny process of the budget, the Cabinet where the budget was agreed, and I certainly felt as if we had been listened to. The HRA, as you say, is a very important aspect of our budget, and I probably spend as much time looking at those pages as I do the general fund. Quite a lot of time on both. Overall, I think the HRA is something that is very supportable. I want to pick up on something that Councillor Owen said, because it's a detailed point, but it's within the budget. And going forward, if I happen to be here after May, and that's far from certain, if I am here after May, I certainly will want to be looking very carefully at the budgeting and the contribution of what's happening around the Broadway improvements, because I do think it's actually quite questionable that people have been paying money for quite some time and there's been no sinking fund established for the improvements. But that's something that we can look at after May if I'm around to do that. So overall, I want to say that I welcome this budget. I will be supporting this budget. And it just goes to show that I just feel that if there's a genuine change of philosophy and that we work together across the groups, we get a result that I think probably virtually all of us can support tonight. I will be supporting it for the first time in a long time.
Very good. Councillor Phillip.
Just like to thank Councillor Money for those comments. I would say, actually, I don't believe I have changed my approach significantly. We don't all, Councillor Murray, you and I don't always agree on things, but that's fine. But I have always listened to what's been said. I might not have agreed with it, in which case I haven't done it. But this time I found myself in a position where requests that came in, I've been able to address some of them. I think we've got a good balance between the ones that we have to take and the ones we don't have to do this year. It was great to be able, as I say, at the late stage of getting the budget balanced, to bring forward that little bit of extra, well, quite a big bit of extra money, particularly in the area of CAB, which is a very important thing, and we do support it. It gives us the opportunity, as Councillor Murray says, over the coming year to work with those organisations to make sure that their budgets and our budgets are right-sized for when we come to this stage next year. And certainly we will look at what we can do, both from a general fund and from an HRA point of view, to make sure that we're as robust as possible going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. The love is still there, then. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. I was very interested and pleased to hear Councillor Phillips say that one of the last-minute changes he'd been able to make to the budget was to fully fund the grant to Citizens Advice and Voluntary Action Epping Forest. He would be aware that just before the meeting, the Liberal Democrats tabled an amendment to the budget which says exactly that. It asks that the grants are fully funded, and like Councillor Phillips said, we suggested that the money came from the Transformation Revenue Reserve, which seems quite a coincidence, but nevertheless, it's coming, and that's good news. So this goes back to December, when the draft budget was presented to us at OSC, and at that time, the reduction in the grant was 50%. It was then made 25% and 12.5%. So we're delighted that now the full grant is being paid. I'm sure members know what Citizens Advice does. I'm sure, like me, you have referred members, residents to them for their expert and up-to-date advice. You may not be quite so aware of what Voluntary Action Epping Forest does, so I'd like to just give you a brief outline, because no doubt they will be needing funding next year as well. So they have an award-winning service for people with learning disabilities, one of which is upcycling. You may have seen their bird boxes on sale in local places. They also have a befriending scheme, which includes community clubs for people who are socially isolated. And when the clubs take place, it enables the carers to have a short respite. They have a benefit advice service where someone goes out to people's homes to provide help to apply for things like attendance allowance. And our officers refer people to that service because BAF officer can go out to the homes. The community handyman provides services for older homeowners, which is greatly valued. They have a volunteer centre, which puts people who want to volunteer in touch with organisations that want volunteers. There's nothing else like that in the district. And they teach people digital skills. And each year, it delivers the Winter Warm programme on behalf of the County Council, a whole variety of services which no one else provides. And I'm really pleased that they're going to get their full grant. It's only £3,000, the extra bit, but it means a lot to them and Citizens Advice as well. We can't lose any of that. So thank you, Councillor Phillips, for agreeing to what we were asking.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Whitehouse. Councillor Kaufmann? Sorry, did you want?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chairman. I am glad that I could do this. Let me really be clear. I did it. I suspect that, I guess my emails between myself and the leader and perhaps myself and Mr. Small have been intercepted so that the Liberals could work out what I was going to do and then try and claim credit for it. Just to be really clear, this was baked in the budget on Sunday. Now, I've said all along that we cannot take changes late on. We said at Cabinet that the leader and I would continue to work on the budget to try and refine it. It's unfortunate that they went for an amendment, which fortunately turns out to be unnecessary.
That's right.
But just make it clear, it is something we're able to do. There was a snide little bit there that said CAB will still need funding next year. At no point were we cutting all the funding from the CAB. We're able to preserve it, and we stand up to that. But it is important to say, and I'll say it now because I suspect we'll be moving into budget preparation all too soon, get things to me early and get it with detail, because then we can do the modelling, we can do the planning. And if Councillor Whitehouse had come and spoken to me on Monday, I would have said there was no need to do the amendment because it was already in the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Philip. Councillor Kaufmann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick thank you to Councillor Philip. I agree I support the budget. I just want to say that it's been a really challenging year for the council and for business in the district generally. Times are tough out there, so to achieve what's been achieved is fantastic. I hope we start to see a better economic climate occurring for everyone, so we can do even more to help the big society. We need to get money into people's pockets. We need to help some of the other aid offers within the district. Everyone is struggling for money. Charities are struggling. Everyone is struggling. Whatever we can do economically to generate more revenue to put out there, do good work for the next coming years. That's what we all want. So, but thank you.
Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. And yes, I agree. And that's part of why this portfolio also includes the economic development part, which I've already answered questions on tonight. That is not something that we will neglect. We're changing our focus somewhat in what we're doing with being involved in the North Essex Economic Board. That is a key to how we take it forward. We're actually doing more together as a larger organisation, which means the small pockets of money that we can all contribute to things actually give better value. It's worth saying, though, that there are a number of other activities that we're doing from an economic development point of view that do help. It is in my council report about the money I've given from the Rural Prosperity Fund to various places across the district, and that's quite often charitable activities or small groups that are working on it. We will continue to do that. We've got funding for that for next year as well. We're also working with the FSB to do significant work there, and we're actually supporting them again by giving businesses in the district a reduced cost for 2 years to be members of the FSB. Been a significant take-up on that, and they're actually making use of the facilities that the FSB give in terms of advice and guidance. And that's got to help those businesses to be more successful. Businesses doing well, drive more money into people's pockets. I'll do my best to take as little of it as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, over the last 8 years, I've struggled sometimes to support the budget, but for the most part I have. And the officers have done an excellent job again this year. So thank you for the changes you made to the CAB and the VAF, because I was struggling to support it without that alteration. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't say thank you for saving the police, the CAB and the VAF in this election year.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip.
Chairman, I don't produce a budget on the basis of what the elections are going to be. I produce a budget on the basis of what's good for our residents, and remembering that I have to balance the budget, because there's no use giving away lots and lots, which I haven't done this year, if that then puts the council in a position where it has a real problem next year. What we're doing here is we're setting up the basis for a good council going forward so that we can actually do a proper piece of work. But thank you for supporting the budget. And if you like it from an election point of view, presumably be voting for me.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. Councillor Aniket Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't actually planning on speaking on this item this evening because I asked a lot of questions at overview and scrutiny. But I thought as this is going to be the last budget I'm voting on, I felt that I'd just make a few comments on it. I know last year when we brought forward the budget, it was an extremely difficult process that we followed. And Councillor Phillip said to the Chamber at that time that the next budget that came forward was going to be even harder. We made a number of... last year when we reviewed the budget, we had to make a significant number of savings and had to find even more savings for this budget. And he stuck to his word and said that he was going to involve the full council in the budget setting process this time and hear right across the chamber about more efficient ways in which we could generate more income and particularly look at services that matter most to our residents. But I want to make the comment, and I made this comment at ONS, we sort of take the budget in isolation, take it for what it is being presented this evening, but I think it's important that we remember the history, particularly the number of years that this council brought forward budgets without increasing council tax, and particularly over the last few years where a number of councils post-COVID had significant increases in their council tax, yet we continue to provide our frontline services without making any cuts. But also it's the non-statutory responsibility services that we provide as a council, which I've always been a massive advocate for, where, and I think, it's the strength of the council that through our partnership working and our ability to source grants, externally levering funding, that we're able to provide additional services that other councils may not necessarily be able to provide. And these are certain things which are more customer facing, particularly the work around from the Communities Directorate, and in the health and wellbeing space, which again, because as Chairman, I want to make comment on this. As I'm Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, I just wanted to make comment on the amount of money that we actually lever in, and which enables us to do some of the great work that we do. And next year, when we come to the budget setting process, Councillor Phillip, please don't forget the health and wellbeing space, because I think that there's going to be more pressure put on this council to support residents in an even greater way than we already do. But just one final comment before I sit down. Just in terms of forward thinking, and I think I must make mention of the leader here, because during the COVID period, when we were looking at the response work, the leader was already looking at the recovery work and thinking about how this council was going to continue to survive, essentially, but generate more revenue so that we wouldn't have to make cuts for our residents. And I think, looking at the efficient way in which the council then brought forward policies, particularly around the asset management, which was a revenue generator, but also looking at the fees and charges that were being applied through our regulatory services, for example. Just, I commend the work of some of the cabinet members, but also the officers as well, because their approach has always been to forward think as well, and seeing how we can make this council more efficient and generate more revenue, so that we're not cutting services. In fact, we're protecting our frontline services and enhancing them. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. And I would just probably say, watch this space. At the last Cabinet meeting, we had Fit for the Future report. That is something that will be coming over the coming year. That is what will hopefully, I know that Mr Small and Mr Hartgrove agree with me in this, hopefully that will make next year's budget setting not as difficult as this year's. That's our aim. We want to move ourselves to a point where the angst that we have to go through on a regular basis, trying to match the expenditure and the income, will be fixed, and it will be done by making us a council that is more efficient, better run, and has the ability to work with our partners, both other councils and in other sectors, to deliver the very best we can for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Skinsky, did you have any declaration of interest for this meeting?
No, I didn't, and apologies for my tardiness. My car had an argument with a very large pothole on the way here.
Do you have any declaration of interest? None at all?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. A few days ago, I visited, not for the first time, done it many times, Norway House to visit some residents who had recently moved in. And this is always a very salutary reminder, really, of one of our statutory duties, which is housing under legislation. And it reminded me that council tax is a regressive tax, and it affects those least able to pay the most. And the majority group in recent years have really striven to keep council tax as low as possible, for which it's to be very much commended. This year, Councillor Phillips particularly asked all of us to own the budget setting process, which encouraged us to get involved, and many of us, and I feel that you've really listened to what we've said at those meetings. And we have to remember the whole process of setting the budget is done against a whole backdrop of many years of reduction of grants from central government, where councils have had to be very much more creative. and particularly the determination of the leader to build a new pool and leisure centre is to be applauded. In a report Swim England brought out last autumn, it said 1,000 of publicly accessible pools had shut since 2010, and many more are due to reach the end of their life, which is about 40 years for a swimming pool. And we should remind ourselves that about a third of children leave state schools unable to even swim 25 metres. So this will be a welcome asset for our area, but it does come at a cost. And we have to find the money for it. Just personally, the casualties in this budget, in my opinion, that we haven't been able to address, and thank you for the reprieve. As you know, I was one of the people who spoke out against the cuts to the budget for CAB, who have a tsunami of people coming. One of the cuts, I feel, has been the end of the Crucial Crew, because it was an excellent programme for school children to take part in. And also, though this isn't in the budget, it is the last year this year that the town centre partnerships, of which there are only 3 left, Ongar, Waltham Abbey and the Broadway, will receive £1,000. Next year, it's gone. Now, in the Broadway, which is the only one I'm involved in, though I'm in touch with Waltham Abbey quite a lot, our insurance alone to hold public events is over £300. And though we expect some businesses will be able to give a contribution, it's difficult. It's a difficult time for people. The other thing that I would wish to draw attention to, and I do welcome Councillor Phillips and his colleagues' creativity about the museum to move it to a trust. But I do feel that it's going to be more difficult for them to do some of the absolutely excellent work they've done, particularly in the education field. That's something that is a personal sadness to me.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks, and thanks for your contribution. I do appreciate it. A couple of things I would like just to pick up. I think the best way of us actually protecting the museum for the distant future is what we did in terms of putting it into a trust so that it can actually operate as a community museum. I did have my arm twisted up my back for the figure that we actually ended up funding it. I was originally going for significantly lower than that, but I've been persuaded that that's the right thing to do to preserve the museum. And I think with the organisation that's going in place there, we will see a very successful museum going forward. It may not be able to do everything that it did before, but that is true not just of the museum, not just of this council, but for a lot of people and a lot of organisations around the place. Leisure, I agree, is an very important thing, and it's something I didn't mention at all when I was speaking before, but obviously we have, and the leader will point out has pointed out a number of times how putting leisure into a provider many years ago has allowed us to continue with our leisure centres that we've got in a environment where lots of other councils are actually closing theirs. But it does come at a cost, and the fee from the leisure centre goes up year on year in line with the price increases, and that is one of the other pressures on the budget as we go forward. We haven't had to do anything with that, and as you said, we're quite right, we're actually continuing to develop and make the offer better for our residents, and I think that's completely the right thing to do. Town centre partnerships, and I know Councillor Brooks and I have talked about where you might draw the dividing line between them, but perhaps town centre partnerships for the areas which are really interested in them is something that a town and parish council can help with. I know when I was on Theydon Parish Council, we looked at things like that in terms of funding them out of our grants policy. I would encourage those town centre partnerships that want to continue to look that direction for support.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to add my thanks to officers and others involved in the preparation of the budget this year. It's been a far from trivial task. I welcome the scale and range of information that's been made available to Over and Scrutiny this year, at an earlier stage than sometimes been the case. And I'm pleased to see the budget has actually evolved in a positive direction following that scrutiny. I note Councillor Phillips' amendment that he mentioned at the start of this session hasn't actually been tabled yet, and I would appreciate sight of it before we vote on it. I mean, normally these things be circulated as supplementary amendment, and I think it's important we see exactly what we're being asked to vote on. The reason we put forward our amendment is because over a long period over in scrutiny and at Cabinet, my colleagues and others made the case for funding the CAB and VAEF, and until the announcement tonight, the Cabinet had only seemed to move part way towards that position in response. And I could justify that spending on the basis it is a small percentage of the Council's overall budget and a very small percentage of the extra resources that have become available to the Council since the budget process begun. But actually that's not my argument, because even small amounts, every penny counts, even small amounts need to be properly scrutinised and need to be justified. But I will say that it's a sum that makes a relatively small difference to the Council's budget and financial position, and a very big difference to the voluntary organisations that we're talking about, and more importantly, to the residents in our wards who benefit from the services delivered by those organisations. So I'm very pleased that it looks that the budgets are being reinstated tonight. It's worth saying it only reinstates it to flat cash level. These organisations will still need to absorb the impact of inflationary costs. In terms of where the money is coming from, as Councillor Phillips said, there's still well over £2 million in the revenue reserve, revenue transformation reserve. It's due to go up to £3 million next year. That still leaves multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend on further council transformation projects, if that's what the council chooses to do. And I think that is an area the council needs to scrutinise carefully over the next 2 or so years. It's a lot of money currently unallocated to set towards projects. If it makes the council fit for the future, that's a very good result coming out of that. But it's important that scrutiny is fully involved in that process, and that spending is fully justified given the competition for revenue in the council. So overall, it's a budget that is better than it was. Possibly not quite as good as it could be, but one worthy of support. We had a good discussion at the Audit Committee about the Treasury management and investment and capital strategy aspects, and it's clear the council now has some options it didn't have before the land sale. I do have some remaining concerns. The hollowing out of parts of the planning service is a concern given the scale of development that's coming down the tracks. For all the talk of no cuts to services, it's more difficult now to talk to a planner for a member of the public than it's been in the past. It's more difficult to get through to council officers in general. The out-of-hours noise service will no longer be there for residents to call on. It's moving to an ad hoc service. These are frontline services that members of the public rely on. Some of these issues potentially are issues that could be addressed in year if needed. I've got concerns about the homelessness service and whether it can cope with the extra demands being placed on it, but I've listened to and accepted the assurances that have been given. But again, I think it's an important area for scrutiny and for members to keep an eye on in the light of comments indeed that the leader made earlier. So, just to repeat my thanks to members and officers for the work they've done on the budget, and I'm pleased that, regardless who thought of it first, that the amendment looks likely to go through tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's my report. I don't need to move an amendment to it, and I did call out very clearly on page 58 the changes that were made in that table there to lines GD40 and GD150, restoring those to the budgeted net expenditure for 23-24. So that is clearly part of the report that I'm bringing forward, and the concomitant change to the amount in the transformation reserve. Touching on the transformation reserve, I completely agree. That's a lot of money, and I expect a lot back for that money. We will not be spending that 2 million this time, 3 million in the end, on stuff that doesn't return us significant benefits. It has to do that but I don't want to not do something that makes us a better council because we haven't allocated enough money in the reserve. And I think anybody who's worked with me will know that when it comes to spending money, perhaps I do return to my roots with deep pockets and short arms. But the leader and the chief executive, when they want to spend money on the Fit for the Future, will have to be able to convince me, and probably more importantly, the rest of the council, that this is something that is worth us doing to actually get better. That's our aim. It's not just cheaper, it's get better and be better set up for where this council is going in the future. In terms of planning service, I just have to address that slightly. As Councillor Whitehouse knows, in our quarterly budget monitoring reports throughout this year, I've had to say planning service is running significantly below where they plan to be. We do have coming forward the 30% rise in fees, which I'm sure Councillors Bedford and Wilkinson will be very pleased to see. That will help. If we get to a point where the planning department is doing sufficient amount of work, that the fees are coming in and we need more officers to service that, then that is something that we can do in year, because although the expense goes up, the income goes up, and that balances out. We have to make sure that the planning service is working the right way, and I know there's work going on with that, and we had the planning advisory service in January so that we could look at that. How do we do things better? It will involve changes in the planning department. It will involve differences in the way that we work in this council for planning, because that has a cost as well. And we mustn't forget that the things we do as councillors incur costs in the councils. We need to balance that out. Inflation, yep. Inflation which hit CAB and VAF, guess what? It hit the council as well. We have to do that. We haven't been able to raise different things. My instruction to the departments looking at it was not looking even for a flat level, but looking for significant reductions of 10 or 15%. So in that context, keeping it flat for next year is a real contribution to the way those organisations can work. And we're happy to work with them going forward into next year in how to most efficiently use that funding and how to set them up best for the following year.
Thank you, Councillor Philip. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Philip, for your budget today and for the officers who have worked on it alongside the Cabinet as well. And as we stand here today, I think it's very important to remember the context we stand here in, and not to be doom and gloom, but many local authorities over the country are experiencing very difficult times. In fact, many of our neighbouring local authorities are in a far less comfortable position than we find ourselves in. And actually, this has been a really difficult budget. We've had to make lots of difficult decisions, but leading an authority and leading a well-run authority like Epping Forest means making those difficult decisions. It's about ambition, as we've seen with the fantastic Google deal and the jobs and opportunities that will bring, but also a dose of realism and also always making sure that we make those sensible financial decisions. And believe us, with big responsibility, there are never simple answers. And today I just quickly wanted to highlight a few of the areas of the budget which I believe are important and where we really add value, because as a local authority, we keep council tax down. We have the lowest council tax in Essex, and that remains the case. But we also add a lot of additionality in terms of the services that we provide. And I'll touch on the museum first, as Councillor Brooks raised it, and I'm lucky to be the chairman of the Museum Trust, which is very close to vesting, and Councillor Helen Kane is our very diligent treasurer. And we've got some fantastic trustees, so I wanted to reassure you around that. A lot, actually, about 2 or 3 who are in the education profession, so we bring that expertise as well. And what I would say is I had a good conversation today, and I'm meeting later this week Ian, who's our new full-time museum manager and previously worked at the museum. And there is a lot of ambition there, but actually it's about bringing it back to its roots as well, because as a museum we did fantastic projects, actually often looking at the national picture, but I think the benefit of the Museum Trust is doing what residents want and reflecting on our local area and our local history, where we have much to be proud, from Winston Churchill to the historic photos that we see in the museum at the moment. So we're still looking for trustees, Councillor Brooks, if, I don't know, Jill Wallace has been trying to persuade you, but you'd be very much welcome. And we have got a wide range of expertise from across the Epping Forest and wider community. Councillor Patel isn't here today, so I just quickly wanted to touch on policing, which I know also is covered by Councillor Williamson. But often we don't quite see the value of our police officers, but they really do fantastic work. If any member ever gets the opportunity to go up to the Community Safety Hub, I really would encourage them to do so. There is the most impressive suite of CCTV which covers the district, which means that our police officers can be responsive. Also, lots of police officers, beyond the ones we hire, work in those offices, which mean fantastic partnership working. It also means that we can be on the ground quicker. And I often implore the officers that actually we should be seeing more on the ground action, which we certainly do in Debden, where there's been a focus around antisocial behaviour, and also in Epping on the Monday market, where we have particular issues with pickpocketing. But they do fantastic work, from recovering stolen vehicles to breaking up county line drug gangs. So while they might not always be visible as we'd all like to see, they do fantastic work targeted by this council on this district's priorities and putting local people first. And then the work they've done around safer streets, working across the spectrum. And actually, the leader touched on it briefly in his opening speech, but that Safer Streets project is a fantastic example of community working and where our officers are really leading on the front line. I'd like to mention in particular Wendy Cockbill, who's done amazing work on Ninefields. Her team knocked on over, I think it was well over 1,000 doors, I believe it might have been more, referring people to services, whether it be housing, citizens' advice. There is so much work our teams do, and it often gets overlooked. So a big thank you in particular to the community team. But I won't go on too long, because I could talk about the community team in particular and the additionality we add, but just onto my own portfolio of housing. And I remain proud that this council has its own housing stock, 6,500 council homes retained by this council. And yes, it's less than we had 30 years ago, but we still retain that within our stock. And that remains very important, that local people have an opportunity to access affordable housing when they need it, when they're vulnerable. And that's what this council is proud of delivering, and also continuing to build new council homes. And actually it's important to highlight the partnership that means we can deliver new affordable social housing and put our council tenants or the people on our waiting list at the top of that priority list. So thank you for this budget today. I'm pleased to see their support across the chamber. This is a difficult budget, but a budget that delivers the services that local people need, takes the difficult decisions, and also looks to the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hollywood-Brett. Councillor Tim Matthews, then Councillor Kazza Rizvi, and then we'll wrap up with the leader. Sorry, with the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Phillips and the officers involved with preparing this budget. I took the opportunity this year to try and be a lot more involved with the scrutiny, and it was great to see so many other members there, and really reassuring to hear our voices, not only just mine, but members from across the chamber's voices heard and implemented, as we've heard numerous times this evening. So I would actively encourage all other members to really take part in the scrutiny, because this year the proof is in the pudding, as they say, tonight, with the comments being made from all members across the board, how positive that was. So yeah, I'd just like to extend those thanks, and you may brand me the eternal optimist, but I see, following the comments of this evening, no reason why this budget will not receive unanimous support in the chamber tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kazza Rizvi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be very brief in my remarks. But I think what we've seen tonight is actually overwhelming support from members across all groups for this budget. And whilst we hear, Mr Chairman, about stories of other neighbouring councils in financial turmoil due to irresponsible decision-making, I'm proud of the budget that's been presented tonight, and I too would like to applaud our officers for their hard work and for the dedication in putting it together, and particularly wanted to say a special thanks to Councillor Phillip and the leader of our council for being so proactive and forward-thinking in their decision-making, and for recognising the needs of our residents and continuing to keep council tax at the lowest in Essex and keeping us very much fit for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Risby. Councillor Chris Whitbread, would you like to respond? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and what an excellent debate this evening. It's good to see that across the chamber there seems to be a warm support for this budget, and I think that's really important. And a lot of that goes to the brilliant work that's been done by officers. Thank you both, and thank you to your teams for all the hard work that goes into these budgets. They're not easy, and Councillor Phillip sort of touched upon it before. He'll put this budget to bed tonight. Work on the next one has already started. That's how hard doing budgets in this climate are. I think the overview and scrutiny team, chaired by Councillor Wixley, have done a terrific job in particular this year, and thank you very much for that. I think it was very useful. I think it was a really constructive debate. The only thing I would say, and Councillor Matthews took the point there that he turned up and actually engaged in the scrutiny process. I just wish more members would engage in it, because it's a really important part of the process. And actually, where councils have failed, it's where scrutiny hasn't been at its best. And I think the changes, some of the changes we made this year with Councillor Wixley taking over the chair. We had a brilliant chair before and a brilliant chair before that, but just that change that's needed in the modern world where the executive needs challenge, and that helps a lot. This has been a particularly long, hard budget process. If you think where we were just in the late autumn and winter, it was tough. But we would have got the job done. We would have had a balanced budget, and it would have been the right budget for Epping Forest. We have been very fortunate, and things improved in January, and we were able to change some of what we were doing. And Councillor Phillip wasn't joking when he said we were speaking constantly on Sunday, into Sunday evening. In fact, I finally got a glass of wine at 10 o'clock because Councillor Phillip and I were busy debating how we could improve the budget from where it was, and we got there. And I believe there may have even been a call to officers on Sunday evening as well. But it was a really, to me, budgets are an enjoyable process, maybe not for the people around me. I'd like to thank the Cabinet team. They did a brilliant job, and they really engaged in the whole process. Maybe that's why Sam's decided to retire from the budget process. But it has been really good. We have a lot to be proud of in Epping Forest. I touched upon it earlier on, and my colleagues have all touched upon it as well. We have got the lowest council tax in Essex, and that's something we should be proud to be able to do. No council tax increase is good. No tax increase is good, because it means that our residents, local people, are paying more. And at the end of the day, we always know people's money is better in their own pockets to spend on their own families and the things they want to do. So we never think taxation is good, and it should never be 1 penny more than it absolutely has to be. And this year, we are only taxing what we absolutely have to tax. Pride in place. We are very proud of this district. We all are. We're all proud of our communities. And that's why I'm so pleased that we've been able to keep the Highways Rangers again. They do a terrific job out there. Whether you look at the small improvements they've done on Sun Street or Epping High Street, when they pop things right, the verges they cut back. Last year we didn't get support for that, but we continued with it. And that's really important to us, because it's the most important thing is that place where you live. And whether or not it's the finger post in a rural corner of Essex or just cutting back those grass verges, we're really proud of that. And then you heard my colleague Councillor Whitbread talk about our new council homes and the new ones that we'll be launching again next week. What a brilliant piece of work we did. One of the few councils up and down the country that's delivering new council homes. And the quality of those council homes is something to be proud of. Our extra police officers, we heard how they work in Debden, how they work in Epping High Street, how they work across this district, and the rewards that we get from that. But it's more than just having the 3 extra policemen. It's that partnership working with the police that we do so well. And it was great when Roger Hurst joined us at Ninefields the other day, and it's good that we are seen as a really proactive council in Essex. Better leisure services. When I had my first role in the Cabinet taking over leisure services, it was in turmoil. We couldn't even make a decision over spinning bikes. Not that I know what spinning bikes are, or I've used them, I can promise you. But we couldn't even make a decision on spinning bikes. So by the time we'd made the decision, it was a year out of date. Now we have leisure services that we can be proud of. We have the super centre at Waltham Abbey, which whenever I go there, I'm impressed, and the usage of it is superb. And that's great for Waltham Abbey. We have a brilliant centre in Loughton. The usage of it is superb. Very soon, after 50 years of waiting, we will have a great sports centre in Epping with a swimming pool. I think that's something to be proud of, maybe because I'm Epping born and bred, and I'm proud of the area that I grew up in. Councillor Brooks and myself are looking forward to our swimming challenge when that comes. It'll be sponsored, and it's a race between the 2 of us. It's still on. Fly tipping, the state of our local area. Our actions on fly tipping are really important to us. There's too much fly tipping, and it normally comes from outside the district as well. But we do act, and we do enforce, and I think that's another thing we should be proud of. And most importantly, I think all of us around here, we want the best for our communities. Doesn't matter which side of this chamber we're on. The one thing I know about councillors, and it's something my wife's grandfather told me years ago, we were complete opposites. He was on the left, I was in the centre-right, but we were complete opposites to each other. But one thing he said to me, he said, during a heated argument over the dinner table, I almost got kicked out of my wife's family before I even started, was the important thing is we all want to get to the same place. We all want to improve our communities. We've just got different ways about it sometimes. And sometimes you'll see me and Councillor Murray engage in a good debate and a bit of a ding-dong. But actually, do you know what? It's about the best for this council. It's about, most importantly, the best for our residents. And so this evening, as we present this budget, and I commend it to you, we really do believe this is the best budget for Epping Forest. It sets out the stall for the year ahead. It sets out a vision for the future. We're fit for the future. Yes, we have to change. Yes, we have to move forward. But yes, we can do it, and we can make a better Epping Forest as we move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's getting very... Councillor Phillip, have you still got more to say?
Oh, I'm sure I could. This is where I start my half-hour speech.
It's very emotional budget at the moment.
You said before I could speak for as long as I... No. Chairman, I think we've had a really good discussion on the budget, and I thank my colleagues that have spoken since I last spoke. I agree with what they've said. What I'd like to ask, Chairman, is that we take the 8 recommendations on page 36 on block, with the one modification in Appendix 1A for GD 140, the final amount to be 152440, and GD 150 with the final reference being 30,000 exactly, which will mean that the contribution towards the transformation reserve drops by 18,000, which takes us to 2.134. And as such, Chairman, I'd like us to take all the recommendations en bloc.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. So before we move on to the vote, there are 8 recommendations we're going to take en bloc. So it's a recorded vote. So, Mr. Woodall, would you like to take us through the votes, please? Just a minute. So, Mr. Small.
Sorry. Doesn't really change the substance of the item, but the actual change in terms of contributions to reserves, as on page 64 of the agenda. We'll also change to 1954, reduced from 1972. So,
Yeah, if that's agreed with that amendment, changes. So, Mr. Woodall, over to you, sir.
Right, thank you, Chairman. So this is a recorded vote. I will call your name individually, councillors, and if you could let me know if you are for the recommendations, against the recommendations, or if you are abstaining. Councillor Allgood. Councillor Amos.
For.
Councillor Balcombe.
For.
Councillor Bedford.
For.
Councillor Bolton. Councillor Brooks.
For.
Councillor Burrows.
For.
Councillor Gabbett.
For.
Councillor Green.
For.
Councillor Heap.
For.
Councillor Heather.
For.
Councillor Helen Kane.
For.
Councillor Sam Kane.
For.
Councillor Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Lyon.
For.
Councillor Lucas.
For.
Councillor Malcolm. Councillor Matthews.
Someone's got their mic on.
There we go. Councillor McCann.
For.
Councillor McCready.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Lisa Morgan.
For.
Councillor Richard Morgan. Councillor Murray. Councillor Nweke.
For.
Councillor Owen. Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Parsons.
For.
Councillor Aniket Patel.
For.
Councillor Phillip. Councillor Rizvi.
For.
Councillor Sharif.
For.
Councillor Stocker. Councillor Sangha.
For.
Councillor Vaz.
For.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
For.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
For.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
For.
Councillor John White.
For.
Councillor Williamson. Councillor Wixley.
For.
Councillor Yerrell.
For.
That's unanimous, Chairman. 42 votes to nil.
That's carried. That's amazing, actually. It's the first time in the Chamber I've seen a unanimous, a whole members united. So congratulations to everybody. Can I just say thank you to Councillor Phillip and all our officers for probably the best budget so far, I think, to date. So we move on to item number 12, and I think it's over to yourself, Councillor Phillip, again.
Chairman,
report of the Cabinet Council setting.
Yeah, I'll make this really quick. We've approved the budget. We've approved the budget unanimously, and thank you, councillors, for that. To make that budget work, our council tax was as in the budget. It's set here. This is the council tax level that we need. I don't think it requires any more discussion.
Mr. Woodall, do we? Anybody wishing to speak on that? Councillor Murray.
This is item 12. Is it, Chairman?
Item 12, yeah.
Yes, I do just want to say a few things. I will keep it quite short, but we have got a number of papers in front of us. Page 144. We've got the tables of the relevant bodies. I'm not expecting necessarily the Chancellor of Essex to respond again because it came up in my question, but I have to say I'm not happy with that increase of £72.36 from Essex County Council that's incorporated in our papers and our decision making as the precept authority. Very unhappy with that. I don't personally feel that it recognises value for money. And then on page 148, I always look at this really carefully. We've got the Appendix A in front of us, all the parish rates for the various parish councils. And I'm sure everyone here would be happy with their parish rate, particularly if they sit on that particular parish. But I just have to draw members' attention to Loughton's rate of £76.35, which, to my way of thinking, reflects far more value than £130 odd in Waltham Abbey and £117 in Epping. I'm very proud of that. What we managed to do on a relatively small amount of money in Loughton. I could speak at length about all the wonderful things we managed to do on £76.35, but I won't. But as I say, I'm much happier that I'm living in Loughton with that council tax than in Waltham Abbey at £130.88. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you. I would have been surprised and shocked and perhaps even disappointed if Councillor Murray hadn't, in this particular section, referenced the Loughton Town Council precept. He's done it for every year I can possibly remember. All I will say is, with regard to that, there is a town centre partnership in the Broadway that is looking for some funding, and since the Loughton Town Council is so well run, I'm sure Councillor Brooks will be happy to speak to Councillor Murray about taking some of that to fund the town centre partnership.
Thank you, Councillor Murray.
They've already been invited to submit an application for next year.
Thank you. Councillor Leader, would you want to second that?
Obviously, I'm happy to second I don't second the council setting because it's already been taken care of in the previous vote. I just have to sort of remind Councillor Murray, he really does need to read the County Council's budget papers to understand the stresses they face. But if he wants to see a cut to children's services or a cut to adult social care, that's what Councillor Murray is saying when he talks about not good value for money. You really do need to read the papers before you make those type of comments.
Thank you, Councillor Whitbread. Anybody else wishing to ask any questions? If not, I don't see anybody. So, Mr. Woodall, it is a recorded vote again, members.
So thank you, Chairman. So again, members, I will call your name just like we've done for the last item, and I need you to tell me whether you're for the recommendations on pages 143 and 144 of your agenda, whether you're against or whether you are abstaining. Councillor Allgood. For. Councillor Amos.
For.
Councillor Balcombe.
For.
Councillor Beck.
For.
Councillor Bolton.
For.
Councillor Brooks. Councillor Burrows.
4.
Councillor Gabbett. Councillor Green.
4.
Councillor Heat.
4.
Councillor Heather.
4.
Councillor Helen Kane.
4.
Councillor Sam Kane.
4.
Councillor Kane, can you just turn your mic? Turn it off.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaufman has left the chamber, so that's an abstention. Councillor Lee.
4.
Councillor Lyne.
4.
Councillor Lucas.
4.
Councillor Malcolm.
4.
Councillor Matthews.
4.
Councillor McCann.
4.
Councillor Macready.
4.
Councillor Mead.
4.
Councillor Lisa Morgan.
4.
Councillor Richard Morgan. 4. Councillor Murray.
4.
Councillor Nweke.
4.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Payne.
4.
Councillor Parson.
4.
Councillor Aniket Patel.
4.
Councillor Phillip.
4.
Councillor Rizvi.
4.
Councillor Sharif.
4.
Councillor Stocker.
4.
Councillor Sunga.
4.
Councillor Vaz.
4.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
4.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
4.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
4.
So, can you turn your mic off? Thank you.
Councillor John Whitehouse.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor Wixley.
4.
And Councillor Yerrill.
4.
Chairman, that's a unanimous vote of the people in the chamber, 41-0. There was one abstention, Councillor Kaufman, because he left the chamber in between the items.
Thank you, Mr Woodall. That's been carried. It's been approved.
Chairman, just for
Councillor Murray, did you want to come in?
just for clarification, I might be wrong because I've never been a chairman. Councillor Kaufman's not here. That's not an abstention. He's left the meeting. An abstention is when you're present and could vote and you decide not to vote. Surely that's an abstention. As this is a recorded vote, I wouldn't have thought it's an abstention. He's no longer present. An abstention is when you're here and you choose not to vote.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Should we just get clarification, Mr Woodall?
I will check that before I print the minutes, publish the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members. In which case, we'll move on to item number 13, the report of the Monitoring Office, the constitutional update by Councillor Alan Lyon. I believe it's on the scheme of delegation. So over to you, Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a very brief report and it relates to the changes brought about by the Building Safety Act, which relates to fire safety in buildings that as a result of the Grenfell Tower and lessons that have been learned there. This provides the scheme of delegation to allow changes to the Constitution so that the building control team manager and the planning services director can actually issue control measures that relate to either stop notices or compliance notices, something which is necessary and essential in this day of changes, and certainly where there are buildings with external cladding. I think it only applies to new builds, but if there are changes to planning, this would obviously apply to those as well. So the recommendations are to propose to the Council the scheme of delegation and as set out in the report, and that to be noted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, we all agree with that noting. Noted. Thank you. Item number 14 is Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think this might sound like a bit of an anticlimax after all the discussion about the budget, but I'll carry on regardless. Since the last full council meeting, we've had one Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, which was on the 23rd of January. The minutes of this meeting are now available on the website for members who may wish to read them. However, I will just say that the meeting provided another opportunity for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee members to comment on the draft budget proposals for 2024 to 25. And what I will say is this was the second opportunity that she had to discuss the draft budget. The previous one was on the 12th of December. I'm very pleased to say that the Cabinet took on board most of what we said on the 12th of December. And there was just, we got this other opportunity again on the 24th of January. And there was just an outstanding issue which has been dealt with tonight, which was regarding the funding of the CAB and the Epping Forest voluntary action for Epping Forest. So it was just those two issues were outstanding. So we didn't quite at that point get all our wishes, but I'm very pleased that Councillor Phillip has pulled a rabbit out of the hat tonight at the 11th hour and granted that. And although he said that he was speaking with Councillor Whitbread about that at 10 o'clock on Sunday, I suspect that perhaps that rabbit got pulled out of the hat at 11 o'clock that evening. So looking forward, our next meeting seems quite a long way off. It's on the 23rd of April, when we will receive the annual presentation from the Youth Council. And I understand it will be a new Youth Council because they've got elections coming up towards the end of March. And there will also be an opportunity to review the draft annual Overview and Scrutiny annual report. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wixley. Any questions from members? No? Okay. Thank you very much for your report, Councillor Wixley. Item number 14 is item 15 is joint arrangements and external organisations. Councillor Whitehouse, Janet Whitehouse.
Chairman, about a year ago, or a bit longer, Council received a report from the Constitutional Working Group saying how important it is the Council receives reports on outside bodies. And we're nearly at the end of the civic year. There's a number of outside organisations we haven't heard from, and I would ask that members who haven't reported yet send a report in to the next Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So is that a question or just for noting? Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Otherwise, we're exclusions of public and press. No, nobody else wishing to speak. Then I close the meeting at 9:04. Thank you.